My female coworker held her lower belly and leaned over my cubicle. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Iris, there are a few boxes of files in the basement archive. Can you come help me carry them?" In my past life, I was too soft-hearted. I went with her. Half an hour later, she lay in a pool of her own blood in the emergency stairwell. Blood soaked half the hallway. When she woke up in the hospital, she cried and pointed at me. Iris forced me to carry those heavy boxes. She pushed me. I was fired, sued, and bankrupted. My father suffered a fatal heart attack from the stress. My mother went insane, and I eventually jumped off the roof of our office building. It was only after my death that I found out she was a corporate spy planted by our biggest competitor. Her mission was to sabotage our department's flagship project, and she had been falsifying her pregnancy records to create a diversion and blame me. This time, I sat firmly in my chair and didn't budge. "You're pregnant, Alice. You shouldn't be lifting heavy things." I picked up my phone and opened our department's main Slack channel. "Let me get you some help." I typed out a message. "Alice is pregnant. She needs male colleagues to help retrieve files from the basement archive. Elevator use only." I hit send. The office instantly went dead silent. Alice's face froze. The administrative supervisor, Sarah, replied in the chat. "On it." HR followed up immediately. "I will confirm the safety protocols for pregnant employees right now." Alice opened her mouth, flustered. "You didn't have to tell everyone." I looked her straight in the eye. "You're pregnant, Alice. It's not safe for you to go alone." In my past life, she led me into that blind spot in the stairwell where there were no security cameras. In this life, I was going to make sure she walked a path under the watchful eyes of everyone. Alice bit her lower lip, her eyes turning red. "Iris, I just wanted you to walk down with me. I didn't say I was going to make you do all the lifting." I put my phone back on the desk. "You literally just said, 'Come help me carry them.'" Her face turned pale. I must have phrased it wrong. "No, that's why I'm helping you follow the official safety procedures." She stared at me. The look in her eyes lasted only a fraction of a second. It was too quick for anyone else to notice the pure hatred in it. A few seconds later, she put on her victim face again. "Are you still mad at me because I didn't finish editing the project proposal last time? I know my efficiency went down after I got pregnant, but I really didn't mean to drag the team down." Sophie immediately whispered to comfort her. "Alice, don't overthink it. Iris is probably just looking out for you." Brandon sneered. "Looking out for her by blasting her pregnancy in the main channel. Pregnant women deserve some privacy, don't they?" I looked up at him. "Then you go carry the boxes, Brandon." Brandon choked on his words. "I didn't say I wouldn't." Just then, Sarah, the admin supervisor, walked over, pushing a utility cart. Sarah glanced at Alice and said politely, "Alice, you don't need to go down there. Just email me the file names and box numbers and we'll get them. Pregnant staff are not allowed in the archive room or to lift heavy loads. That's company policy." Alice stood there, totally paralyzed. I added, "Since those files contain bidding drafts, please log the box numbers and take photos of them for the record." Sarah nodded. "Right bidding documents must have a clear paper trail." Alice's expression grew even uglier. She didn't actually want the files. She wanted me alone with her in the parking garage where the security cameras had been deliberately disabled by her contact in maintenance. In my past life, she staged a fall there. No one saw it. So whatever she said became the absolute truth. She said I pushed her. I said I didn't. The company asked me for proof. I had none. In this life, I would never go to any secluded spot with her again. Alice lowered her head and sent the file details to Sarah. After Sarah left with her team, Alice remained standing by my desk. After a long silence, she whispered, "Iris, you seem so guarded against me now." I opened the meeting minutes on my screen without even looking up. A paper trail in the workplace protects you, and it protects me. At 3 p.m., the files were delivered to the conference room. Sarah posted the photos in the chat channel. Every step of the process was perfectly documented. No one could find a single flaw. Before leaving work, Alice posted an update on her social media. It was a picture of a hospital hallway. The caption read, "I'm so sorry, sweetie. Mommy tried her best." Within 10 minutes, her comment section blew up. "What's wrong, Alice? Did the company make you work overtime again? Being pregnant at work is so hard. Sending hugs." Alice replied to all of them with, "I'm fine. I just don't want to be a burden to anyone." I stared at that sentence for 2 seconds, took a screenshot, and saved it. Then I turned off my phone. Alice wasn't going to stop. She wanted my spot for the international rotation program, and she needed a scapegoat to cover up her espionage activities before the project deadline. Sure enough, she didn't show up for work the next day. On the third day, the HR director, Patricia, sent me a message. "Iris, come to conference room 3 immediately." When I pushed open the door to conference room 3, Alice was sitting on the sofa by the window. Her face was paper white, and her eyes were swollen, as if she had cried all night. Sitting next to her was her husband, Nathan. In my past life, this man leaked my home address online and screamed at the camera, calling me a baby killer. To raise money for the settlement, my father went to the bank to beg for a loan. He suffered a massive heart attack and collapsed right outside the bank doors. Later, Nathan said in his live stream, "I just wanted justice for my child. I didn't know her father would die." He didn't know. How convenient. Patricia sat at the head of the table with several documents in front of her. "Iris, Alice has reported you for severe workplace bullying and abusive management behavior." I pulled out a chair and sat down. "Be specific." Hearing this, Alice immediately burst into tears. "Iris, I really didn't want things to come to this." I looked at her. "Then you don't have to make a scene." Her crying caught in her throat. Nathan slammed his hand on the table. "My wife just had a miscarriage, and this is your attitude." I looked at him. A miscarriage is tragic, but tragedy is not evidence of a crime. Patricia frowned. "Mr. Vance, please calm down first." Then she slid a medical report over to me. Alice had vaginal bleeding 2 nights ago. The hospital diagnosed it as a natural miscarriage. I flipped the page. Then I looked up. This report doesn't say she was ever pregnant. It says she was taking hormonal supplements to mimic pregnancy symptoms. I put the paperwork back on the desk. "So, what does that have to do with me?" Alice covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking violently as she sobbed. "You didn't go to the parking garage with me that day, but the night before you forced me to revise the project proposal until midnight. You also said in the break room that my pregnancy made me a drag on the team. You said if I had any decency, I would voluntarily drop out of the selection for the international rotation." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. My stomach was already hurting then, but I was too scared to say anything. "I didn't want you to think I was just being dramatic." Nathan roared with bloodshot eyes. "How can you treat a pregnant woman like this? Are you even human?" Patricia looked at me. "Iris, did you make Alice work overtime during her pregnancy?" "No." "Did you use abusive language to trigger her?" "No." "Did you exclude and target her because of the competition for the international rotation?" I laughed. "Patricia, are you investigating, or are you helping her rehearse her testimony?" Patricia's face darkened. "Watch your tone, Iris. The company is dealing with a major incident involving a pregnant employee's miscarriage. As the project lead, you must cooperate." "I will cooperate." I turned on my phone's voice recorder. "Please continue." "I need a record of this too." Patricia stared at my phone, her frown deepening. "Iris, internal company discussions are not to be recorded." "Then please send me a formal written notice." She was speechless. Alice sobbed. "Iris, why do you have to be like this?" "I just lost my baby." "I'm not trying to ruin you." I looked at her. "Then why is every single word out of your mouth pointing the finger at me?" The glass doors of the conference room weren't soundproof. Soon, notifications started popping up in our office gossip chats. My phone kept buzzing. I screenshotted every single one of them. Patricia placed a temporary suspension notice in front of me. Effective immediately, your authority as project lead is suspended. I asked. Before the investigation is even finished, you're already handing out punishments. Patricia said coldly, "This is risk control." Risk control. In my past life, they used those two words to reduce me from a human being to trash. Fine, I stood up. Please send this via email. Copy legal compliance and me. Nathan sneered. Still thinking about suing the company. I stared at him. If anyone defames me, covers up the truth, or passes judgment before a proper trial, I won't let a single one of them off the hook. Alice's crying quieted down, but I saw it. Behind the tissue covering her face, the corners of her mouth curved up slightly. By afternoon, the company's anonymous online forum was on fire. The post didn't mention my name, but every keyword, department, project, rotation, pregnant miscarriage hit me right in the face. The comment section exploded faster than a powder keg. I screenshotted the thread from the first page to the last. 10 minutes later, my access to the project management system was revoked. Brandon was now listed as the lead for the International Energy Project. My application status for the international rotation turned gray. I stared at the screen. I felt absolutely nothing. I had already walked this path once in my past life. Except back then, I was desperately trying to explain myself, begging people to check the security cameras, trying to prove to every colleague that I didn't push her. But they only asked me one thing. Alice wouldn't lie about losing her baby, would she? But yes, she would. In the evening, Sophie walked over with my coffee mug. She placed it on the corner of my desk and said softly, "Iris, maybe you shouldn't leave your mug in the break room for the next few days." I looked up. Why? Embarrassment flashed across her face. Everyone's a bit tense right now. You know the miscarriage thing? It's a very sensitive topic. So even my mug is toxic now. She bit her lip. That's not what I meant. Brandon spun around in his chair. Iris, can you stop being so aggressive? Alice lost her baby. Is it so wrong for everyone to be a little cautious? I looked at him. Are you afraid my mug will make you miscarry too? His face flushed red. You're twisting my words. Then explain to me why my personal belongings can't be in the common area. The office suddenly fell dead silent because everyone always preferred to stand on the side that felt safer. At 7 p.m., Patricia called me into the conference room again. This time, a mutual separation agreement was laid out on the table. Severance pay 0. Confidentiality clauses 12. After scanning through it, I looked up at her. Patricia, is this a separation agreement or a hush money contract? Patricia was expressionless. The company is offering you a way to leave with dignity. 0 severance is what you call dignity. If you don't sign, Alice's family will sue you. The company will also terminate your contract based on our investigation. It won't look good on your resume. She paused, softening her tone. Iris, you're talented. It won't be hard for you to start fresh at another company. In my past life, I believed her. I thought if I just left the company, everything would blow over. But the moment I left the company pinned all the blame on me. Alice and Nathan used my signature on the agreement to claim that I admitted my guilt out of fear. During the lawsuit, that very agreement became one of the final nails in my coffin. This time, I pushed the agreement back. I'm not signing. Patricia narrowed her eyes. Iris, don't burn your bridges. I smiled slightly. I didn't burn the bridge. You guys are trying to push me off it. As I walked out of the conference room, I saw Nathan talking on the phone at the end of the hallway. He was shouting. Yeah, she refuses to apologize. My wife might never be able to get pregnant again. This abusive manager needs to be exposed to the public. He saw me and glared at me with pure venom. I took out my phone and tapped the record button right in front of his face. Keep talking. His face froze. I walked right past him. Behind me, Alice started sobbing again. It felt like a perfectly rehearsed play. The next morning, my cubicle had been cleared out. I stood there staring at it for a long time. Sophie came out of the break room. Seeing me, her face turned pale. "Iris, I didn't do this," I asked. "Who touched my things?" She stammered. "Everyone was just worried that the media might come and take photos. They didn't want people saying the company doesn't care about pregnant employees. So they packed up the controversial items first." Controversial items? My mug, my pens, the small plant on my desk. Everything of mine had become controversial. Brandon walked out of a meeting room and said coldly, "Iris, are you really going to make a fuss about this now?" Alice is literally sobbing in her hospital bed right now. I turned to him. "So, that gives you the right to go through my stuff." "I didn't touch your stuff." "Then, who did?" He went quiet. I took my things out of the cardboard box piece by piece and put them back where they belonged. At 10 a.m., a company-wide email was sent out. Subject: mandatory remote town hall on workplace ethics and employee welfare. It was scheduled for 2 p.m. via video conference. Attendance was mandatory for all staff. I stared at the email, my finger resting on the mouse. In my past life, the company had also put me on public trial in the main auditorium. They called it corporate values alignment, but it was actually a public execution. This time, it was a virtual execution. At 1:55 p.m., I logged into the company-wide video conference. My name was highlighted in the participants list with a special tag. My camera was forced on. I was pinned to the top of the screen for all 300 employees to see. Whispers flooded the chat. She actually showed up. Alice is in the hospital and she's walking around like nothing happened. How thick-skinned can you get? If I were her, I would have resigned already. I started my phone's voice recorder and synced the file to my cloud storage. On the main screen, Patricia stood in a sharp black suit in the executive conference room. The slide behind her read, "Upholding workplace standards, protecting employee welfare." She picked up the microphone, her voice filled with heavy solemnity. "Recently, a regrettable incident involving an employee's health occurred at our office. According to our preliminary findings, certain management staff showed unprofessional communication, unreasonable task allocation, and a severe lack of empathy toward a pregnant colleague." She didn't say allegedly. She didn't say pending investigation. Her gaze through the camera fell directly on me. "The company has decided to suspend Iris Miller from her role as project lead. Her nomination for the international rotation is revoked. Her annual stock options are frozen. We will proceed with the termination of her employment contract in accordance with the final investigation results." A flood of messages erupted in the chat. Termination makes sense. They didn't fire her immediately. The company is being pretty merciful. Patricia continued. "At the same time, the company hopes Iris Miller will reflect on her actions, issue a formal apology to Alice and her family, and take full responsibility." The camera split into a dual view. Alice appeared on the left side of the screen, sitting in a hospital bed connected via video from her room. Nathan stood beside her in full view. The entire company could see them. Alice faced the camera, tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to ruin Iris. She is highly capable, and I've always looked up to her. Maybe the project stress was just too high, which is why she said those things to me and gave me those tasks." She covered her lower belly, her body trembling with sobs. "But my baby is gone. If she is willing to sincerely apologize to my lost child, I will not pursue this further." She performed perfectly for the camera. A saintly victim on a hospital bed. And I had already been nailed to the cross of guilt. Before the chat could even calm down, I unmuted my microphone. Patricia's face darkened instantly. "Iris, this is not an open QA session." I pulled up a secondary window on my screen. "Then I'll share this with everyone right now." Her expression changed. The head of the legal department in the front row quickly stood up, walked over to Patricia, and whispered a few words in her ear. Patricia stared at me, her eyes like daggers through the camera. I met her gaze. A few seconds later, she said coldly, "You have 5 minutes." I clicked the share screen button. The folder name flashed onto everyone's screen. The Corporate Spies Playbook. I clicked open. First to appear was a contact list with notes. The first line read, "Competitor contact Drake." Underneath it, there were encrypted messages detailing project timelines and internal vulnerabilities. Alice's face drained of all color instantly. The hospital sheet in her hand slipped. The video chat was quiet enough to hear a pin drop. On every screen across the company, the text was crisp, clear, and utterly unforgiving. Underneath competitor contact Drake, there were detailed notes. Monthly intelligence uploads. Payment received through Shell Company. Next milestone sabotage of the flagship project. Directly below it sat encrypted chat logs with our biggest competitor's head of corporate espionage. Each entry was accompanied by bank transfer receipts from offshore accounts and email confirmations of classified data transmissions. The entire management team stared at the screen in absolute paralysis. What is this? Brandon stammered in the chat. Is this a joke? Iris Miller. Patricia slammed her hands onto the conference table, her face turning crimson. Shut that down immediately. You are airing irrelevant personal slander. Slander. I clicked the mouse calmly. Patricia, didn't you just ask the company to uphold workplace ethics? I'm simply showing you the true ethical character of your saintly victim. Nathan stared at the screen, his bloodshot eyes bulging. He grabbed Alice's arm so hard, she winced on camera. Alice, what the hell is this? Who is Drake? Alice's lips trembled violently. She tried to pull her hand away, her voice shrieking in terror. Nathan, it's fake. It's AI. She fabricated it. Someone hacked my phone. Fabricated. I cut in softly, my voice echoing through the speakers. Then let's look at something that couldn't possibly be fabricated. Official medical records. I clicked to the next slide. The screen shifted to a high-resolution scan of a medical dossier from a private clinic dated 2 weeks before the parking garage incident. The diagnosis was displayed in bold, highlighted red. No pregnancy detected. Patient requested hormonal supplements to simulate pregnancy symptoms. History of similar fraudulent claims at previous employers. A massive collective gasp rippled through 300 employees watching the stream. A senior engineer typed in the chat, "She was never pregnant. She faked the whole thing." I turned to look at Alice, whose face had turned the color of ashes. "You were never pregnant, Alice?" I said, my voice cutting through the virtual room like a winter wind. "You were a corporate spy hired to sabotage our flagship project. You needed a distraction to cover your tracks, so you faked a pregnancy and planned to stage a fall in the parking garage. You needed someone to blame for your fake miscarriage, so the company would investigate you and discover your espionage activities." Alice's eyes went wild with terror. She scrambled toward the laptop in her hospital room, reaching out to disconnect the video call. "Shut it off. Shut it off. Don't touch it." Nathan roared. He didn't look like a grieving husband anymore. He looked like a man whose entire world had just been exposed as a lie. "You told me it was my baby. You told me you were carrying my child. Who is Drake?" "Nathan, I can explain." Alice screamed, clawing at his hands. "It was just a job. I didn't mean to fall in love with you. It was all fake." Nathan let go of me. As they struggled on the hospital bed right in front of the entire company, Patricia shouted at her screen. "Separate them. Shut off the stream. Shut off the power." "Nobody touches the power," I said into my microphone, holding up a second device. This presentation is currently live streaming to the corporate compliance portal at headquarters, as well as the city's financial crimes division. I clicked the mouse one last time. The final slide appeared on every screen. It was an audio recording transcript between Alice and her handler dated the night before she asked me to go to the parking garage. Handler is Iris, the target. Alice? Yes, she's the project lead. If she goes down, the project delays and we win the bid. Handler, how will you do it? Alice, I'll fake a fall in the parking garage and blame her. I've been taking hormone supplements to mimic a pregnancy. I'll claim she pushed me and I miscarried. Handler, what if she refuses to go to the parking garage? Alice, then I'll claim she forced me to lift heavy boxes. Either way, she's taking the fall, and the investigation will expose enough chaos to delay the project. The silence that followed was absolute. Every single employee watching the stream turned to look at Alice and Nathan through their screens. Their faces filled with utter disgust, horror, and revulsion. Brandon slunk deeper into his chair, trying to make himself invisible. Sophie covered her mouth, her face pale with shame. Patricia stood frozen. In the executive conference room, her face draining of all color as she realized what she had just facilitated. I closed my laptop, unplugged the cord, and picked up my phone. 5 minutes are up, I said quietly into the microphone. Now let's open the door for the guests I actually invited. The double doors of the executive conference room slammed open. 4 uniformed police officers stepped inside, flanked by 2 men in sharp gray suits wearing badges from the Federal Investigation Bureau. Behind them walked a woman in a tailored navy suit, carrying a leather briefcase. When Alice saw the woman through the video, her eyes bulged in pure horror. She stopped screaming at Nathan and shrank back into the hospital bed. Mrs. Drake Alice whimpered, her voice barely a squeak. The woman was Eleanor Drake, the wife of the competitor who had hired Alice for espionage and the primary shareholder of the rival firm. Mrs. Drake walked into the conference room, her high heels clicking rhythmically against the floor. Alice Rogers, Mrs. Drake said, her voice dripping with ice. My husband paid you $300,000 to steal proprietary information from this company? I thought it was just corporate espionage until Miss Miller here sent me your chat logs this morning. Mrs. Drake stopped in front of the camera looking at Alice as if she were a worm. Not only did you betray your employer, but you also falsified medical records, fraudulently claimed pregnancy, and attempted to destroy an innocent woman's career. My legal team has already filed criminal charges against you, and I have already filed for divorce. The lead police officer stepped into the frame, pulling out a pair of steel handcuffs. Alice Rogers, Nathan Vance, you are under arrest for corporate espionage, fraud, and filing a false police report. The cold steel snapped tight around Alice's wrists. No, it wasn't me. It was my handler's idea. Alice shrieked, kicking wildly as the officers pulled her out of the hospital bed. He told me to fake the pregnancy. He helped me buy the hormone supplements. Nathan gasped, his face turning pale as paper. You told me you were pregnant with my child. You told me you were just taking vitamins. You never told me you were a corporate spy? You knew you helped me buy the fake hospital documents. Alice screamed into Nathan's face. The two of them began beating each other again, cursing and clawing right there in the hospital room in front of 300 employees, local law enforcement, and executive management. The police officers forcibly dragged them down the hospital hallway. As Alice passed the camera, she looked at me with bloodshot, lunatic eyes through the screen. Iris Miller, she screamed, her voice echoing in the hospital corridor. You ruined me. You ruined my life. I sat calmly in my chair, looking at her without a single trace of emotion. I didn't ruin your life, Alice, I said softly, my voice carrying clearly to everyone on the call. You dug this grave yourself. I just refused to jump into it with you. As the police dragged Alice and Nathan out of the hospital, the stream remained active. Nobody dared to type in the chat. Nobody dared to speak. Patricia stood in the executive conference room, her hands trembling. She cleared her throat, trying to regain her executive composure. Well, Patricia stammered, her voice shaking. It appears the company was misled by a deceptive individual. The HR department will immediately revise its investigation procedures. Iris, we appreciate your assistance in clearing up this misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. I unmuted my microphone. Patricia, do you really think this ends with Alice? Patricia froze. Iris, what do you mean? The culprit has been arrested. The culprit who tried to sabotage the company is arrested, I said. Now let's talk about the internal accomplice who helped her. I shared another document onto every screen. 3 days ago, I requested a paper trail for the parking garage security footage. Our HR director bypassed the standard compliance check and pushed for my immediate suspension within 2 hours of Alice's claim. That was standard risk control. Standard risk control. I smiled coldly. Then why did you receive a $50,000 payment from the competitor's shell company last week in exchange for suppressing the investigation? A collective gasp rippled through the stream once more. Patricia's face turned from white to a sickly green. You're making false accusations. I'll sue you for defamation. The financial trail has already submitted to the Internal Audit Committee, I said, pointing to the document on everyone's screen. You needed a reason to fire me so you could give the international rotation spot to Brandon, who happens to be your nephew, and who was also feeding information to Alice. The chat erupted into absolute chaos. Brandon shot out of his chair in his home office, his face bright red. That's a lie. I earned my position. I had nothing to do with this. You had nothing to do with it. I turned to him through the camera. Then why did you personally disable the security camera in the parking garage 2 weeks ago, ensuring there would be a blind spot for Alice's planned fall? Brandon stumbled backward, knocking his laptop off his desk with a loud crash. I didn't, he stammered, sweating profusely. At that moment, the side door of the executive conference room opened. 3 executive directors from headquarters walked in, led by the Senior Vice President of Global Operations, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison's face was dark as a thundercloud. He looked at Patricia, then at the giant screen displaying the corrupt financial transfers. Patricia Blake, Mr. Harrison said, his voice flat and terrifyingly cold. Brandon Carter and the entire HR review board involved in this incident are suspended immediately pending criminal investigation by our legal team. Mr. Harrison, listen to me. Patricia begged, grabbing his arm. I was just trying to manage the public relations risk. Security, Mr. Harrison interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. Escort them out of the building. 2 corporate security guards walked up, stripping Patricia and Brandon of their ID badges right in the conference room, escorting them out through the side exit as 300 employees watched in shocked silence. By 5 p.m., the corporate cleanup was absolute. A company-wide email was issued directly from global headquarters. Subject: Executive Board decision regarding workplace integrity and corporate espionage. 1. Immediate termination and legal prosecution of Patricia Blake and Brandon Carter for bribery, corporate fraud, and abuse of authority. 2. Full public exoneration of Iris Miller with formal written apologies issued by executive management. 3. Reinstatement of Iris Miller as lead of the International Energy Project with immediate promotion to Regional Operations Director. I sat at my cubicle watching the facilities team install a brand new, customized executive desk in the corner office, the office that used to belong to Patricia. Sophie walked over timidly, holding my mug, which she had carefully washed and polished. Iris, Sophie murmured, her head bowed low, her eyes red. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have listened to them. I shouldn't have moved your things. I looked at the clean mug, then looked at her. In my past life, Sophie was one of the people who threw rocks at me after I fell. She wasn't inherently evil. She was just cowardly, jumping on whichever side seemed stronger at the time. Put it down, I said calmly. Iris, are you going to fire me? She whispered, trembling. No, I replied, opening my new project management portal. I don't fire people based on personal grudges. I fire people based on competence. If you want to keep your job, get the international market reports on my desk by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Sophie looked up, shock and gratitude flashing across her face. Yes. Yes, Director Miller. I'll have them ready. She ran back to her desk, working harder than she ever had in her life. That evening, I received a call from the police department. The officer informed me that Nathan had agreed to turn state's evidence against Alice in exchange for a plea deal. Alice was facing up to 10 years in federal prison for corporate espionage, grand fraud, and false reporting. Furthermore, my civil lawsuits against both of them for intentional emotional distress and workplace defamation had been approved by the court, freezing all remaining assets in their joint accounts. They were ruined completely, utterly, and irrecoverably. I hung up the phone and walked out onto the balcony of the office building. The evening sun was setting over the city skyline, painting the clouds in brilliant shades of gold and deep crimson. A cool breeze swept past my face, rustling my hair. I pulled out my phone and dialed a familiar number. "Mom," I spoke into the receiver, my voice soft and warm. "Iris, honey." My mother's voice came through, energetic, cheerful, and healthy. "Your father and I just finished dinner. How was work today?" "It was great, Mom." I smiled, a tear finally escaping the corner of my eye. Not a tear of pain, but a tear of profound, overwhelming relief. "Everything is settled. I'm coming home for dinner this weekend." "Wonderful. I'll tell your father to buy your favorite fresh fish." I listened to my mother's happy laughter over the phone, feeling the warm, steady thrum of my heart inside my chest. In my past life, my father had died outside a bank. My mother had lost her mind, and I had jumped off the roof of this very building in despair. In this life, my parents were safe. My reputation was spotless, and the people who tried to destroy me were rotting in prison cells. 2 weeks later, International Terminal City Airport. I stood in front of the grand glass window of the departure gate, wearing a tailored cream blazer, holding my passport and a first-class ticket to Geneva. Behind me, Mr. Harrison and the executive team from headquarters came to see me off. Director Miller, Mr. Harrison smiled, shaking my hand warmly. "The International Energy Project is our most critical initiative this decade. We know it's in the best possible hands." "Thank you, Mr. Harrison," I replied. My posture straight, my confidence absolute. "I won't disappoint the board." Just as I was about to walk through the boarding gate, a commotion erupted near the security line outside. I paused and looked back. A woman in handcuffs was being escorted through the terminal by 2 federal agents wearing a bright orange jumpsuit, her hair matted, her face gaunt and pale. She was being transferred to a federal detention facility. It was Alice. As she shuffled past the gate, her hollow, sunken eyes caught sight of me. She saw my crisp blazer, my executive team, my first-class ticket, and the bright, boundless sky visible through the glass windows behind me. She stopped dead in her tracks, her lips trembling, tears spilling down her dirty face. She had tried to use a fake pregnancy, a disabled security camera, and a web of corporate espionage to steal my career and destroy my life. And now she was heading to a federal prison cell while I was stepping onto a plane to lead a multi-billion-dollar global project. I didn't smile. I didn't mock her. I simply adjusted my coat, turned my back on her, and walked through the gate toward the jet bridge. The heavy glass doors closed behind me, cutting off the noise, the drama, and the dark shadows of the past forever. I stepped onto the plane, took my seat by the window, and watched the city shrink into small, quiet dots beneath the clouds as the aircraft soared into the bright, endless blue sky. I had survived the fall, and now I was flying.